Hey everybody, it's your man JHelix. I really kind of was back and forth on whether or not I wanted to make this video or not. Whether or not it'd be useful or actually harmful to this little channel I'm trying to build, whatever, but I figure in the name of transparency and how much people are discussing nowadays this kind of thing, that I would maybe share with you a little somewhat personal stuff that affects me. I think especially as an artist, fitting that personality type, it affects me a lot. But I know even people who aren't artists and people who have very straightforward lives and tend to be somewhat optimistic and all that, they can be affected too. So I don't want to make it seem like it's all about artist. Anyway, as you can probably tell, I'm kind of pretty low energy today. Got to sleep on time. I always try to be pretty good about that kind of stuff. Everything was pretty good as far as that's concerned, but the same thing happened to me last night that happens to me quite a lot in the past recent history. I would say a few years, but it's not consistent. Unfortunately, very few things about my mental state from time to time are consistent. Very inconsistent, actually, and that's part of the problem. Anyway, so I tend to recently wake up sometime in the middle of the night. Usually, sometimes it can be super early, like 3 or something, but usually it's right around that 4:35 mark in the morning. And for some reason, I'll pop awake and I'll have to go to the bathroom or whatever, so I'll go take care of that. And then, my mind, for some reason, tends to be on hyperdrive at that time. And it's never positive. It's never like, oh, yay, shit's going good, and man, I'm so excited, it's hard to get back to sleep. My mind will literally be thinking about some shit that might be, let's say a minimum of 5 years and all the way to 20 years in the past. Will be fixated on something stupid. Now, I have certain things that I either did, screwed up, said, people I hurt, whatever, that tend to be reoccurring things that I think about, and then I have others that are just kind of I guess a little buried, maybe at the time did not feel like they were significant, but for some reason my mind recently has been showing me quite frequently, I would say 50% of the week, unfortunately, this happens to me often. I've developed ways of just kind of repeating things inside my head, little expressions to be to push the negative thoughts away so that I can so that my sleep can just kind of take over. And oftentimes before I know it, the alarm's going off. Feels like way too early, obviously. But this shit happens to me quite frequently, and I think part of it is my age. I'm considered middle-aged now, basically an old fuck. So a lot of things in my life, decisions and all that, are determined already. When you're 18 or when you're 20 or whatever, you still have, if you imagine a choose your own adventure book, you're at the beginning of your tree branches. You can make a whole bunch of decisions that take you a variety of different places. But when you're middle age, like me, your choices a lot of times have been made already, Not to say that people aren't living way longer, and like, my age right now, I could totally, completely change everything and go in a totally different direction. But what I'm trying to say is everything becomes exponentially more difficult when you are set in a certain lifestyle, or certain patterns, or you've made certain decisions already that affected different things that set you off in different directions. So that shit becomes a little bit trickier to change when you're middle-aged as opposed to like when you're young, for a variety of reasons, but time being the main one. So anyway, this shit happens to me a lot, and recently, back if you would rewind maybe 5-10 years ago, 10 is a stretch, but maybe between 5 and 10, would put me right in the middle of when I kind of reached my apex of like toxic influences that I had in my life, and most of it was my lifestyle choices in terms of I've never been like an addict of any drug, but what I've always been, even from a young age, younger than a lot of people get into this shit, I established a sort of a dopamine dependency, I guess you'd call it, or I was always searching, even at a young age, to sort of like be outside of the regular just realm of my everyday life. I believe I was around 11 years old. I had my first cigarette, and obviously when you're that young and you have a cigarette, you basically get high on it. It's not like having a cigarette when you're like addicted at 25 just to get by, or to keep the mood normal. When you're that age, you're basically getting high if you take a few puffs on a cigarette. So I started doing that kind of shit when I was literally 11 years old. Which to other people who use various things throughout their life are probably not too surprised, especially the older they are. We were a little wackier. Us old people were a little more, I guess, nuts in many ways at a younger age. But those of you who maybe have never done a drug or don't drink or whatever, you might be like, holy shit. And when I look back on it now, I say kind of holy shit too. And it was through no fault of lack of parenting. I had good parents. I was middle class. I lived in the country, so there wasn't any wasn't like lower class or lower class in the city. Makes it like super hard to stay on the right track. But I didn't have those excuses. I just always kind of sought out something other than my current situation mentally. I don't know where that came from. I know I've had. I was diagnosed with ADHD, which is now, it's like, 50% of kids have that now, but this was back before it was cool, Like, I had that shit at a really young age. And so anyway, without going too much into detail already, I'm rambling like crazy, but so we fast forward to when I'm maybe, right around 20, maybe 18. Starting to get my actual sort of like, still kind of a kid in your mind, especially when you're a guy, I guess they say. But you're just starting to really get your confidence at that point. And, especially like, I guess different people like whatever lose their virginity at different ages, but at that point by like 20 is really when I started to like come into having confidence, like with girls, even in bed or whatever, just confidence in general. Along with other parts in life, I moved away. I did a brief stint in college. 1 year, 1 year endeavor as a music major, and that's all it took to make me kind of feel like I was on the wrong path. Music was the right path, but I just, that was training me to be like a music instructor or like, a pianist or, something very specific that I never wanted to do. I really wanted to just create my own music like I do now, but, not knowing how fucking hard that is. To make your living. But anyway, So anyway, at that age, I started to develop confidence, but at the same time, in order to boost that, and because you're young and stupid, you kind of supplement that real confidence with what I later came to realize much later in my life that was essentially like ego walls. And I'm not a woman, so I don't know how it compares to women developing, but at least with me, you feed on that confidence and you build it up and you add these walls of ego on top of it to where not only am I the man for this reason or whatever, every time I get laid or every time I'm with a new chick, that makes me the man. It makes me worth it, I'm really worth something. Because inside you're fighting that thing, at least I was, where you don't feel like you're worth anything. And I don't blame that on my parents. I don't know where it came from. I blame part of it on my artistic side, because you're always striving to feel like you're something of value, because maybe the art in society is valued on the surface, where people go to concerts and they're like, yeah, this artist is cool, but like day to day, I don't know, society kind of looks down on artists. And I would say especially now, where like everybody's making beats and that kind of shit. You say you're a producer and people are just like, nice, but anyway, so I guess I always had some sort of an inferiority thing going on. So one of my coping mechanisms was building a huge ego and then supplementing it with a whole lot of different fucking recreational drugs and being at parties a lot. I guess I loved partying a lot because you weren't really thinking while you're partying and while you're with your boys and some hot girls there and whatever. While you're doing all that, you're not thinking about your actual like fundamental self or your real life. You're thinking about how fun you're on a dopamine high. So I guess I made it my business to be on that as much as possible. And I don't want to mislead people into thinking that I just fucking bounced through my life not accomplishing anything. I was able to start my own little small, business in the peripheral music field in order to make income while I do the production and while I do music. Things were a lot different when I started. The industry was completely different. So it's much more, I look at it now like I kind of thank the stars that I do have that side gig, because it turns out that most people that aren't like Taylor Swift or someone of that caliber are pretty much either struggling on tour or they're got a side gig. So I'm happy about that now, but I had a period of time in there, and it was in my 20s, where looking back now as a grown and more intelligent man, God, I did so many stupid things, so many stupid things to divert my life in the wrong way, and I hurt, I'm not saying, like, in the words of Henry Rollins, I got a kick out of this interview that I saw him in where he was talking about his anger issues, which I also have. It's usually a byproduct of feeling small. You cope with that fear and that pain by, making yourself big, and you're saying, I don't want to feel this pain. I'm fucking going to turn it into anger instead. So I have a little of that. Maybe not to his level. He's kind of a beast, but... anyway, he was talking about how he's not, his anger issues, he's not like beat up your girlfriend or kick the dog angry, but he's still angry, and that's exactly what I am. I was never like, beat up my girlfriends, but I was certainly not nice sometimes, I was terrible at breakups. Anything where I would endure, anything where I had to swallow a bitter pill of pain, I would turn it into anger usually, and I would be the guy that would, fucking leave you with that word nugget that just eats at you, like bring up the fucking thing I know you're sensitive about and be like, well, if shit's going out the window, then here's this fucking bullshit in your face to make myself feel like a fucking, like I'm in charge. But really, what that shit does in the long run if you believe in karma and all that kind of stuff, which I do now on some level, maybe not on the actual religious level, but on the spiritual level, I do believe that if you pump enough of that bullshit out into the universe, eventually, if you're an aware person, if you're not a total psychopath, which I guess, thankfully, this is an indication that I'm not a psychopath or a sociopath, because I've been on a reconciling with this shit for several years now, and trying to work it out the best way I can, but it comes around. And it may not come around, I didn't manage to ruin all my relationships and all that. There's still plenty of people that I know and love, and that know and love me, and it's not like I was just spreading pure hatred around the world, but I was just being a fucking arrogant douche, essentially. And so this kind of stuff, in my case, came around and now manifests itself, and oddly, so I'm mixing song number 8 now. I'm about to start recording song number 8 for this album. And this album I'm working on is I would say, for me personally, feels like the best art that I've ever done in terms of music. I mean, this album coming up is no synths at all so far, and it's everything is just me playing the guitar, me playing the bass, programming drums, using real, simulated drum kit plugins that they have now, and singing. All the effects are done either using voice or guitars. So it's just requiring a lot of pure musicality from me, and so for that reason, it's allowed me to be very expressive. But at the same time, as that window is open, and I tell people, as an artist, I feel like I have a window open. It's the same window that the universe feeds me ideas in through. If I try to shut that window, then I get to be where I was 10, 15 years ago. Mr. fucking ego, Mr. untouchable on the surface, Mr. fuck you, toxic shit fuck. And again, maybe I wasn't that bad. In my mind, I'm much worse than I probably was, but that came out sometimes. And keeping that window opened, but not dealing with this like that. I'm this long ass crazy rambling video is really hard for me to do. So that window, that all that fucking sensitive connection with the universe comes in through, also allows, it allows the demons to fly in and out, and it also doesn't allow me to hold that ego. If I'm going to be pure, then I have to be pure, and I can't fucking take that ego and use it to block you out or to keep you from hurting me, which is, I would say, probably easier than it is to maybe hurt somebody who didn't have a window like that. So anyway, that's what I'm dealing with now. Those are some of my demons that I struggle with. And so you hear about these musicians who have a lot more trauma than I do. I would say that because I was raised well, and my parents did the best they could, which was pretty good. Well, they weren't perfect, obviously, but we had our issues like every family does. But I can't cite specific trauma that goes deeper than, say, minor traumas that just, interrelations between the genders and all that. Everyone gets some sort of trauma in their childhood, but I don't have any. I wasn't beaten or molested or anything like that. So I don't have that extra trauma, but you can understand. So if you figure your average musician out there is struggling with the same shit I struggle with, which is, if you go online, if you go on Reddit, or you start reading musicians when they're talking honestly to each other, this kind of shit that I'm saying to you right now is common, very common. which kind of, I guess, is what gives the artists their, you know, you got people like Van Gogh cutting his fucking ear off, you know, probably while he was wasted. And then you got like, you know, Edgar Allan Poe is a fucking addict, and all these other people, you know, all the way throughout time. Mozart was an alcoholic and a party animal. This kind of shit, I think these kind of demons in this kind of scenario has affected musicians throughout time, and artists in general, probably visual artists too, and anyone who has that kind of craft, that they have to get in touch with something outside themselves in order to be able to do it. I think the demons come in through that window for everybody. So anyway, now this video, when I turn this around, it's probably like a 30-minute rant. We'll see how much I have to edit out, or whether I want to edit it out at all. But anyway, as a musician, shit's going great. As a person, I'm struggling on and off. I may, you know, I could make a video 2 days from now and be fucking, you'd be like, oh, where was that Jeff from the other day? You know, that's how it is. That's how my fucking mind works, and that's what I got to deal with. So it could be a lot worse. But I just wanted to share that with you, and hopefully that gets in contact with some of you out there and lets you know maybe that what you're going through is the same shit that a lot of other people are. So anyway, till next time, hopefully I'm in a better, more well-rested mood. See ya.